Hello again everyone and welcome back to Gran Turismo 7 Custom Project Set 1. Here we are at the penultimate video of this series with a double header. We have two NSX GT500 builds, the ARTA edition and the Stealth model. The ARTA is a real car, whereas the Stealth model is a Gran Turismo original. I decided to do both these cars in one video as they both use the same car as a base and are pretty similar in terms of what parts to buy and their tuning settings, so I thought two videos would be a little redundant. There are some differences between the two cars besides their liveries, but not enough to warrant two separate videos in the one pack. But I do love both cars and have a lot of nostalgia for both of them, so I wanted to cover both of them, and here we are. Both of these cars have been featured in previous Gran Turismo games and have different stats across each game they appear in. For these builds, I've went with the Gran Turismo 6 numbers as my basis, as that's the most recent version of these cars in the series. So, both cars have the same parts fitted to them, so when I list the parts fitted, they apply to both cars. Then, once the parts are fitted, I'll show you the tuning settings for the ARTA NSX first, then I'll show you the Stealth model, and we'll conclude with the usual showcase of the cars on the track. As usual with these builds, both cars are outfitted with custom liveries made by members of the community, and I have left links to both of them in the description for you to download and use yourselves. As always, be sure to like the original creators' work and show them some love from this video. Now, let's head to the tuning shop and fit our custom parts to these cars. So, remember that the parts listed here are for both cars, as they share the same selection of custom parts. With these two cars, I wanted to take the settings from Gran Turismo 6 and essentially translate them over to Gran Turismo 7, which was surprisingly easy to do. Most, if not all parts available in Gran Turismo 6 return in Gran Turismo 7 in some shape or form. So, for our parts, we will need nothing from the sports section. We'll need nothing from club sports section. I purchased the power restrictor, but it's not actually used in the build. For semi-racing, you'll want the fully customizable computer and the fully customizable LSD. In the racing section, you'll want the racing silencer, you'll want the racing brake kit, you'll want the brake balance controller, the fully customizable suspension, fully customizable racing transmission, and racing hard tires. And you will need nothing in the extreme section. So it's quite a simple tuning process, to be honest. Now we will head back into the garage and we will look at the ARTA NSX tuning settings first, and then we'll move on to the Stealth model. So before we look at the specific tuning settings, I just want to quickly say, with these two cars, I was able to replicate all their stats for Gran Turismo 6 almost exactly. The only differences are the horsepower on both cars is maybe plus or minus 2 or 3 on each car. It's a negligible difference in all honesty. The only actual notable stat difference is the weight. In GT6, both cars weigh 1,100 kilos, but in GT7, the car weighs 1,150 kilos. There is no way to lower the weight of the stock NSX GT500 with weight reduction part options not being available, so there is nothing we can do about this. Other than that, these cars are faithful to their Gran Turismo 6 counterparts. So, we'll start with the ARTA NSX and then we'll look at the differences in the Stealth model. So, for our tires, we have racing hards equipped. For our suspension, we have 60mm for body height, front and rear. For the anti-roll bar, it's set quite low at 3 front and rear. For the compression on dampers, we have 26% front and rear, with 36 on expansion for front and rear. With our natural frequency, we have 3.85 on the front and 4.03 on the rear. For the negative camber angle, I have 1.5 on the front and 3.5 on the rear. And for our toe angle, we have a massive 0.50 toed out on the front and an even bigger 1.0 toed in on the rear. I have no idea why Gran Turismo 6 has such high toe angle values by default, but if you wanted to change how the car controlled, then I would definitely recommend adjusting the toe angle and the anti-roll, increasing anti-roll and lowering the toe angle. Though I think these values do work to give the car better control than it does stock, so I'd recommend giving it a try first, and if you don't like it, then these would be the first two things that I would adjust. For the differential settings, I have 10 on initial torque, 40 for acceleration sensitivity, and 20 for braking sensitivity. These are all on the rear because we can't adjust the front values as it's not a front-wheel drive car or four-wheel drive car, it is a rear-wheel drive car. For our downforce settings, they are both as low as they can go at 500 on the front and 700 on the rear. This is because the downforce values in Gran Turismo 6 can be lower, and they are set lower than these two by default. So I've put them as low as they can go to get as close to that value as possible. For our ECU, we have the fully customizable computer equipped with it set to 92%. For the balance and power restrictor, they are not fitted or used. For our transmission, we have the fully customizable racing gearbox, and you will need to do some manual adjustment on this. Like with the Fair Lady video yesterday, the gears shown here are the same gear ratios from Gran Turismo 6. So, like I recommended in that video, I recommend starting from your lowest gear, which in this case is 6th, or you could say it's your highest gear. The bottom gear in the list. Start from that and get that number correct, then move on to the 5th gear, then the 4th gear. That means you'll run into less conflicts with your gear ratios. It means you won't have to go back and adjust what you already did. If you start with the first gear, you run into that problem quite quickly, and you have to adjust. It takes a lot longer. So I recommend starting with 6th, going up through 1st. So once you have all the first numbers accurate, that's when you mess with the final gear. Set that to 4.062, and that will get you these rear numbers after the slash. So I'll leave this on screen just so that everyone can copy this down. And when you have that set, we can move on to the rest of the parts, which is quite easy, to be honest. So for the rest of our custom parts, there's basically nothing that we can fit. The turbocharger can be fitted, but neither of them are used in this build. The racing silencer is fitted by default. The racing brake discs are fitted by default. Brake controller, everything like that is fitted by default. And all the permanent mods like engine tuning and bodywork, none of them are available for this car. So that's it for the tuning on the ARTA. I'm going to quickly jump over to the Stealth to discuss the differences between the two. So onto the Stealth model. The only changes in the tuning on the Stealth model are the natural frequency, which is set to 3.80 on the front and 4.0 on the rear. And the ECU is set to 99% instead of 92%, meaning the Stealth model has a significant bit of extra power compared to the ARTA. All other tuning stats and parts are the same across both cars, including all the other suspension settings, the differential settings, the gearbox tuning, same across both cars. So, now that we have both cars tuned up, let's take them out to the tracks and see how they perform. So, both of these cars naturally feel very similar to one another. I will say that the added power in the Stealth model does make a noticeable difference to the driving experience. It may seem like an unsubstantial change, but you do notice it when driving. The Stealth model feels noticeably faster. Having said that, the ARTA is of course no slouch. Both of these cars feel incredibly fast with superb acceleration, though that can come at the cost of handling. The NSX GT500 is notorious for being one of the more difficult to control Group 2 cars in Gran Turismo 7, and these two custom builds can still have their issues, though I would argue they are vastly improved from stock. I think the ludicrously high toe angle on both cars makes a big difference here. Of course, increasing the anti-roll bar would likely help a lot as well, as it seems oddly low, but that's what it is set to in Gran Turismo 6, and I wanted to replicate that as closely as I could within Gran Turismo 7. In a straight line, these two cars are incredible. Cornering is also good most of the time. Chicanes can trip up these cars, just like the stock NSX GT500, though with these tuning settings I encountered far less issues. These two cars are fantastic candidates for the Sardinia Money Grind event, without any alterations needing to be made to the tuning guide shown here. The Stealth model can do 8 laps with its fuel map on 2 before pitting, and then you can change it to fuel 1 for the last 7 laps, and the ARTA can do 8 laps on fuel map 1 before needing to pit in, meaning that both cars are one-stop cars and incredibly fast and viable choices for the event. So, that will do it for this double car tuning guide. I hope you all enjoyed it. Stay tuned for tomorrow's bonus car to end the series already. I hope you're all looking forward to it. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great day.